So I have to start because this is I'm sorry, but this is the thing that I've always wondered. You and your husband, are you like James Carville and Mary Matlin?
No, we're not. And I'm glad you asked that question because other people just write it and they presume it. That's not what this is. He was never a Democrat working against my Republican presidential candidate. That would be James Carville, who helped make Bill Clinton's career, Mary Matalin, very smart Republican strategist who worked for the Bushes and others. In this case, George and I both were of a single mind that Donald Trump had to beat Hillary Clinton and become president of the United States. George was incredibly supportive, even helpful, coming to the campaign many nights after leaving his own job a few blocks away from Trump Tower. And I write in the book, this new book, Here's the Deal, Glenn, great beach read, great Father's Day gift. Get on it, folks. And so people just need to know the facts. And then George and I had something else in common, and not just as parents of these 4 wonderful children, Glenn Beck, but we had in common that we both accepted big jobs in the Trump administration. Everyone knows what my job. They saw me out there again and again. But George had accepted a position, a nomination as the head of the civil division of the U.S. Department of Justice. That's a big job. And he, did that. Now, he changed his mind about Donald Trump. This is America. We can all do that, Glenn Beck. You can change your mind about Donald Trump, about politics, about what you're having for dinner, whatever it is. But to do it in such a public way was so not George and was so not helpful to his wife and to our family.
Why did he feel it was necessary? You say it wasn't like him. What? Can you get into that? Why did he feel it was so necessary?
Oh, I think people who change their mind about Donald Trump and people who are already congenitally afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome, for which there are no they feel look around, there certainly isn't. They feel duty bound to express that publicly because they find an immediate and equally vociferous, hungry audience in so doing. But as I put in my book, I miss the privately brilliant George Conway, not the publicly bombastic one that he had become. And listen, George is a very smart person. He graduated Harvard at 20, graduated Yale Law School at 23, made partner at the premier law firm in New York City at 30, unheard of in these days after 5 years only, unheard of. And we've been married for many decades. We have 4 children together. What this all comes down to is I don't understand what was happening. And the reason I call it cheating by tweeting is because of how he was spending his time. So if you have a side piece, if you have a guma, as the Italians in my family, the Italian men in my family did, growing up, if you had you have a mistress, you're spending time with that person, thinking about her and meeting with her and being with her and planning that and pretending you weren't with her. And I just felt this was very similar in that this consumed an awful lot of his time and his attention. And you saw what happened. George Conway became a folk hero, but actually Kellyanne Conway's husband did. I put in the book quantitatively that he was referred to as Kellyanne Conway's husband routinely, which tells you all you need to know about what their real motive was, particularly in those beginning months, if not year, which was to try to stick it to me, to try to put division between Donald Trump and me, to try to get me to quit my job. I was good at my job, and I loved my job. I loved my public service job, and I was darn good at it, and I was very focused on it. And I think the media, who never knew, whose job, what the job of the media, Glenn, is, in my view, to get the story. But they took it upon themselves to get the president and those around him, his family members, his senior staffers, and their families. And they couldn't get enough of Kellyanne Conway's husband.
I have to ask just one quick follow-up question, because you write in the book that Ivanka came to you and gave you, I think, 2 names of marriage counselors, and you guys went. You guys are married, and are things better now, or? We
did not go. I put in the book that we never went.
Oh, you did not go. I thought you had 2 names. I thought she gave you 2 names, and he said yes to one.
That's right. He said no to one, and then he sort of shrugged at the other, and we never went. And the way I look at it is that I wouldn't be so public about something so private, except it's important to know that I take my marriage vows very seriously. I've always been faithful to them. And when I said forever, I meant it. And it was very nice of Ivanka Trump, who, and I put in the book, Glenn, that, I was talking to her about something else. Our offices were right next to each other in the West Wing. On the second floor, I called the Cool Kids Wing, White House counsel's office, me, Johnny DeStefano and Dina Powell, Ivanka, and then Larry Kudlow across from us. She was very, Ivanka's a very nice person. She's very gracious, very kind, and she gave it to me on a Post-it because she knew I was open to receiving it. And she said, listen, I've got lots of Democrats in my family. I know how this goes, and they're making things harder for all of us. And it was very nice of her. But we never went. And the reason I talk about it is I think that if George wanted to do that, he would have done that, because that's the way we see the way he spent his time. He did exactly what he wanted to do. So I want to make very clear right now, as I make clear in the book, because I know it gets manipulated, is that George does not owe loyalty and fealty to Donald Trump or to the president of the United States or to a political party or to this or that. The vows were to me. So if he wants to change his mind, he can do that. This is America. But changing his mind about me and that job after we moved our family there together, put the kids in new schools, accepted jobs, and even when he took his name out of contention, out of contention for the civil division chief of the U.S. Department of Justice, Glenn, he put out a statement, not on Twitter because he wasn't much of a tweeter then, put out a statement saying, Mr. President, thank you for this wonderful opportunity, and of course I still support your administration and the work of my wonderful wife. A couple of days later, he sent out his first tweet. I put in the book that Sean Spicer, then the press secretary, is coming toward me in the East Room, and he said, did you know about this? And he's showing me a tweet that apparently came from George Conway. I have an entire chapter in my new book, Here's the Deal, Glenn, that says, but George doesn't tweet. And that's exactly what I said. I said, that can't be true, that he doesn't tweet. That's a fake account, or it was hacked. And we all know the rest is history.
Yeah. Okay, so, you mentioned that Ivanka was very gracious to you. And that's the one thing that I don't think that never comes out about the president as well. His children are very, very gracious. But he is incredibly gracious and warm in person. It's like he's like a different person when he's not on stage. Do I have that read right of him?
You have it absolutely right. And I know that you've had contact with him, so you know this to be true. You've had conversations with him in person, more than a few. Glenn, it is absolutely true. And if Donald Trump was not a good boss, let alone a good boss to women or a good boss to working mothers, of which there were many in the White House, I wouldn't have worked there. Why would I do that? He was a great boss, and he's very warm. And I think Donald Trump will never get full credit for something he's never asked credit for, which is how many times he positively transformed people's lives by picking up the phone, by making a call, by making his private jet available back in the day, by just connecting people need with opportunity. Yeah. And he never really, he doesn't brag about that any more than the people who would run around in the comms department saying, I think you should, go do an off-the-record ice cream stop with your 9 grandchildren. And he would say, well, why would I do that? I enjoy them in private. In other words, he's very authentic that way, and he's very warm and gracious. And even Hillary Clinton, I write in the book, Hillary Clinton acknowledged as much in a debate. Each of them, Trump and Hillary, were asked about the other. Say something nice about the other. Compliment the other. And her compliment of him was, I don't agree with Donald on most things. We disagree on everything, but he has raised really great kids, adult kids.
Yeah, that's true.
And then look what happened. They went after them and still do. But it absolutely is true. And look, it's a measure. If we can all be remembered for our kids, I think that's wonderful. I said when my daughter Claudia, she was only 12, didn't want to move to Washington, and of the 4, I say as a pollster, if you get 75% agreement on something, you're really winning. But as a mom, you basically need to get close to 100% agreement. So I needed all 4 kids on board, and she was really the holdout, and I really feel for her, and she's a great kid now, almost a woman. Claudia, somebody in the Washington Post was doing a profile on me, and they said, well, we saw Claudia Conway's on there with a change.org petition, stop the Conway kids from moving to D.C. What's that about? I said, well, at least she's honest. I said, the rest of this country often pretends I'm a revolutionary, I'm a change maker, I'm going to do this, and they go to McDonald's every night and order number 3 in the van. I said, but at least she admits that she wants things to stay the same and not move. And they said, well, what do you say to her? She said, Mom, I don't want to go to D.C. and be known as Kellyanne Conway's daughter. And I said, guess what? You cure cancer, and I'll be known as Claudia Conway's mother. Deal. And that's very true. And for Donald Trump, he raised great kids. We're all trying to raise great kids. It's the most wonderful contribution you can make to society.
It is. I know I mean, that's the one thing I knew the whole time was that his kids loved him. And at the end, I'm not sure my kids would have walked through that wall of fire. I mean, they never abandoned him, at least publicly. And I doubt that they agree on everything. But maybe that's just me, and I'm not asking for inside information. Biden has already put together a team to come up with options in case Roe versus Wade is overturned, including declaring a national public health emergency. Now, Stu, gosh, don't you wish there was someone that could have warned the American people that this administration is just going to start issuing national emergencies?
It might be a time to remind people to subscribe to Blaze TV at blazetv.com/Glenn with the promo code Glenn to save $10.
Oh, yeah. All right. Okay, so here's what it is. In case they overturn Roe versus Wade, the intent of the Biden administration is to make sure the FDA approves abortion pills that would override any state bans on abortion. So you could buy the pills, they'll send them to you, and that way you'll be able to roll around in pain on the floor of your bathroom, and it'll be wonderful. See, they care about women. The abortion team is overseen by the White House lawyer Dana Remus. She's the director of the White House Gender Policy Council. Now, can I ask you this? The United States has an entire council on gender in the White House. I mean, that seems like something that, maybe the White House shouldn't be engaged in, with a whole council. Do they have an office? Is there like a wing now, a gender wing?
It really is a disturbing chain of events here. I really thought that this was simple. There really was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, that it was pretty easy to figure out there was a boy, there was a girl. We kind of all understood. There was the men are from Mars and women are from Venus thing. Like, how many planets would you need now to put this together?
Oh, you'd only need one because there's no difference between any of them.
Oh.
And we can't identify anybody. So it's just kind of like the Grand Central Planet, whatever planet that is. And I think we've actually been transported to that planet, Stu, because I don't recognize this as the Earth I grew up on. So Dana Remus is part of it. She's the Gender Policy Council. Also, Jennifer Klein, she's the director of the Domestic Policy Council, led by Susan Rice, which I just love that. Now, one of the plans under consideration is to bring abortion doctors to work on U.S. military bases within states that ban abortion. So not only is your government, remember, we will never pay for abortion. That's crazy taxpayer dollars going. Now our military base will be an abortion center. I got to tell you, at some point, I stopped paying taxes. I don't know what that point is because I really don't want to go to jail. But at some point, you will be morally convicted for this. Wouldn't you? I mean, you want your tax dollars going to pay for a military that is also performing abortions against the law?
Look, I agree with you on it being morally offensive, though I will say if I adopt that standard, I'm going to have to break in to the IRS offices and reclaim a lot of tax dollars that I did not feel morally that were acceptably paid. It's tough. You go down these roads and it's like, I don't stand for a lot of the stuff that my taxes go to. In fact, I don't stand at all even for the tax itself. I consider it to be essentially theft. And the first thing I would love them to do is go and repeal the 16th Amendment to get rid of it forever.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't know that that's not really.
I think there's a federal case to be made. I mean, I really do. I mean, I'm not one to go, I'm not paying my taxes out of protest, because I know what would happen to me.
Right.
I would be in a very, very dark cell and never heard from again. So, but I also believe that rule of law. But is there not a case to be made that you said, first of all, my tax dollars won't go to pay for abortion. Now you're using the military to break the law that the Supreme Court just said the states have the right. You're using the military to do it? Anyway, they're also looking to providing federal funds to give travel expenses to those who want an abortion. So they don't do it at the military base. They'll just say, you know what? Guess who has a free trip to New York abortion clinics? You do, and you do, and you do. So that's really good. By the way, he talked about this with Jimmy Kimmel. He said, I'm looking at different things that can be used as executive orders. This goes back to the show we just did this last week. FDR is the most executive orders will. I think he's in the end. No, because he had 4 terms. But he's going to be close to FDR on executive orders. He's ruling everything from the executive office. Everything.
Yeah, and that was his big goal, right? To try to become the next FDR. And that was his big goal behind the scenes. Yep. His advisors were talking him into it. Be bold, be the next FDR. And, of course, he may get to some of the records that FDR set over 4 terms, but it's going to be things like inflation and debt and utter catastrophe.
Yes. Right. So let me give you this one. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, has announced the launch of a task force to address online harassment and abuse. Harris praised the task force in her remarks as a means for societal progress. We need the Claxton air horn for this one. Whenever you hear societal progress, you should look out. No one should have to endure abuse just because they're attempting to participate in society. Oh my gosh, I don't think I can take that. I don't think I can remain silent on that, because boy, wouldn't I love to show you the abuse I've taken just so I can participate in society. A memo on the task force released by the White House condemned gendered disinformation and proclaimed the administration will be developing programs and policies to address online harassment, abuse, and disinformation campaigns targeting women and LGBTQI+. They are going to stop the harassment, the abuse, and the disinformation on those who are public and political figures, government and civic leaders, activists, and journalists in the United States and globally. I think, now I could be wrong, Stu, but I think that rings the big warning bell on the First Amendment. This is government now curtailing speech.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And, I understand they have to give Kamala something to do other than just utter nonsensical, gibberish in a speech here and there, because that's been pretty much her role so far. No. I know she was supposed to solve the border. No. She was supposed to solve, I think, Ukraine for a while. Now they've got her on speech. But I don't know. To me, when you start doing stuff like this, you really do walk that line of a First Amendment violation. And I will not be surprised if there's any teeth to it at all, that places like Texas will start suing over it.
I got to tell you, I'm so sick of your misinformation and disinformation on Kamala Harris. Here she is. This is brilliant. This is from the speech where she was talking about the internet. And I think we all can learn from this. Listen.
Well, the internet is an essential part of life in the 21st century. Can't get around it. Can't get around without it.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Such brilliance.
Oh, God. We did.
Spills right out of her.
Yeah, we did.
Spills. She can't keep it inside.